Cheers, guys. And welcome to Uncle Scott's Pancast. Got a lot going on in the old Pancast today. We're going to talk about barbecuing on my Kamado Joe. Going to take a look at these barbecuing gloves. We're going to cook an egg in a made-in pan. We've got some other carbon steel updates. Got a deal I saw at Costco. Going to talk about MRNA vaccines in the food supply, in the meat supply, and if they're there or not, and more. Let's jump in and get started. Finally got to get outside and do some barbecuing over the weekend. The snow has abated somewhat here in Utah. We're now in mudslide and flooding season, but some good weather. Got outside and made some ribs on my Kamado Joe. Now I've got the Kamado Joe Classic 2 and I've got the 18-inch model. The reason I got the 18-inch model is I got a screaming closeout deal on it. They make a bigger model, which costs well over $1,000 more than I paid for my 18-inch one. I really do like my Kamado Joe, but I just wanted to show a little bit about the capacity here. It's great for like a Boston butt, 8-10 pound Boston butt, smoking one of those, great size for that. For 2 racks of ribs though, I have to cut those ribs. They will not lay out all the way, and I can't get the lid closed with 2 full racks of ribs. I have to cut them so that they all fit on there. Kind of a first world problem to have, but I did just want to illustrate that. I also have been using these Rapicca neoprene, what do they call them? Heat-resistant barbecue pit gloves. I really do like these things. I was going to do a little 10-second review on them. They are cloth lined, got fairly big hands, and they go on and off really easily. And what these allow you to do is when you're grilling, got big Boston butt or these ribs, lots of times I will try and grab them with tongs or get 2 turners under there when I move them off to wrap them. And it's always a mess. I got these gloves and you can just pick the meat up directly, and these protect your hands. So I really do like these, and if you're into barbecuing, I would definitely check those out. Anything I talk about in the video today that is fairly important, I will make sure I have a link to in the description below the video. If you want to check any of the products out or any of the articles we're going to talk about out. A few months ago, actually almost a year ago, I reviewed this Lodge 15-inch carbon steel paella pan. And I noted that it would not fit on that Kamado Joe grill. The grill, it's pretty fairly tight tolerance on that 18 inches. Tip to tail, even though that's a 15-inch pan, it's 19 inches or so tip to tail. So it just will not fit, the lid will not close. I had someone write in, let's see, Musing A wrote in and asked if the Debouille paella pan that I reviewed, if it would fit on the Kamado Joe, and it actually does. So even though this has 2 wider loop handles, it's about 17 inches tip to tail, a 12.6 inch, I never have figured out what 0.6 of an inch is. Pan itself is 17 inches with the handles, and it fits on the Kamado fairly well. So I do like that. If you're going to get a Kamado though, and you have the money, I would definitely go with a bigger one, but I really do like my 18-inch one as well. Let's see, Costco. I saw a deal the other day at Costco on these Cuisinart 4-quart deep fryers for about 40 bucks, $39.97. Costco and Cuisinart, not sponsors. Just saw a good deal there. Thought you guys might want to check it out. I put it up on Twitter the other day at USK Uncle Scott, and someone remarked that prices ending in 0.97, so 97 cents at Costco, indicates that it's a closeout. So I don't know if every Costco is going to have these, but I reviewed that fryer last year, and I liked a decent fryer, not over the top, but decent fryer, and I paid close to 100 bucks for mine. At $40, that's an absolutely screaming deal on that fryer. So if you're interested in a countertop deep fryer, check your local Costco, and they may or may not have some of those, and they may or may not be on closeout. But if you see one at 40 bucks, I would snag one. I put up a review, speaking of deep fryers, of this Hamilton Beach Cool Touch deep fryer last week. I got some feedback on that review, and I just wanted to answer some of that. Jeff Forbes wrote in and said, it looks like the fryer is not deep enough for shaking. And he puts in parentheses, snapping your fingers. So a little Eddie Money reference there. I like that. And he says, frozen fries could be a problem. This is something I run into when I review these countertop deep fryers, is people remark on the capacity. And capacity, it's just one of those things that is what it is. It's a 2-quart fryer. It's not a big fryer. I can get between 40 and 50 tater tots in there at a time in one batch. And those work pretty well. I think it says it will hold 6 cups of fries. And I noted in the review that I could get 1.5 to 2 medium-sized russet potatoes worth of hand-cut fries in the fryer. And that worked fine. But you can't magically make a smaller fryer into a bigger fryer. You either have to work in batches, or if capacity is a really big deal to you, you just have to buy a different, bigger fryer. But they cost more though. So always a trade-off. I put up a video for the hand-breaded, hand-dipped chicken tenders I always make in the fryer review videos. And Ryan T wrote in from Ireland. Great to hear from someone from Ireland. I should be drinking a Guinness. This would be a little bit light for a Guinness, so unfortunately not. And he said he made those chicken tenders, that recipe I put up. And he says, easily the nicest chicken he's had. So thank you very much. And I highly recommend trying out that recipe if you're going to make any fried chicken tenders at home. The gas stove ban, just a little interesting tidbit I saw here, that in California, Palo Alto, there is a supposedly liberal celebrity chef, Jose Andres, who is going to open a restaurant there in Palo Alto. He was ticked off that he couldn't get gas stoves and appealed and got an exemption from the gas stove ban there in Palo Alto. Probably doesn't hurt if you do a cooking show with Obama and donate to a lot of liberal environmental groups. You get a little bit better chance at getting an exception. Are the mom and pop restaurants going to get the same exceptions from the rule? Mom and pop Chinese restaurant want to make fried rice over a gas burner. Are you going to get an exception? Or do you need to be a celebrity chef that donates to political causes? Who knows? Pretty interesting though. mRNA vaccines in the food supply, specifically in the meat supply here in America. There's been some controversy and people are hurling accusations of misinformation. There's some rumors going around that mRNA vaccines are in the meat supply. And there are several articles I kind of want to cross-reference on this. The first is from the pork industry. And I'll put links to all this stuff below the video. It says livestock and mRNA vaccines, what you need to know. And they take great pains to say that there are no mandates or requirements to use mRNA vaccines in pork, and they say it is up to the local farmer. So is it possible? To me that says they're not mandated, they're not required, but it's possible that some pork producers are using mRNA vaccines in pork. Okay, so that's pork. With the beef industry, the various cattlemen's and ranchers associations and corporations are quick to point out that mRNA vaccines are not used in U.S. cattle. We're going to have to parse a few words here. So they're not in the U.S. Livestock supply as far as beef grown in America. However, if you go to your grocery store and you see a pack of beef there and it says product of USA or made in the USA, do you know that that beef is not necessarily grown in America? What it is, there's a loophole. These big meat companies, the big protein companies, they can have cattle grown overseas and then brought in, and if those go through a USDA processing plant, then they can be labeled product of the USA or made in the USA. So if you're at the grocery store and you hear, well, there's no mRNA vaccinations in the US cattle supply, and you see a pack of beef at your grocery store and it says product of the USA, does that mean there's no mRNA in it? I'm not 100% sure. It may have come from some overseas place where they use such technology. I don't know. The USDA is going to, and we support them on this if they actually come through with doing it. They've got a proposed rule that will tighten up the language use for product of USA or made in the USA. And as it applies to beef, that beef is going to have to be fully grown in the United States, in our food chain, not imported to be labeled product of the USA. And it's kind of crazy we get to these points where these things need to be done. And generally around here, we don't like anyone telling anyone else what they can and can't do. However, if it comes to more clarity and truth in labeling and making the labels not only completely accurate, but also really convey the true, full information as to what's in a product, I am all for much better, more clear labeling requirements on food, especially beef, and especially if stuff is coming in from other countries that don't follow our health standards here in America. We'll see. Now, what am I doing about this? After I have started reading all these articles this past week, it seems like everybody's kind of dancing around this issue and kind of creating loopholes for themselves. I have started looking for some locally grown, more wholesome beef. So if I find some, maybe I can do a little video on one of the ranchers, and we'll see what happens there. But I am looking for some more locally grown stuff where I know at least where it came from and how it's been treated and what it's been fed. And I suggest other people do the same. Support your local farmers and ranchers if you can. A person wrote in asking about my vent top upstairs and what brand it is and how many cubic feet per minute. Lots of people have asked about that stove and range upstairs, so maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. It's a gas stove, might as well do it before it gets banned. That is all part of the set. The hood and the backsplash and the stove itself, those are all Ilve Majestic series appliances. And I'm not sure if they make that particular model anymore. I think they're on to the Majestic 2, but kind of a bucket list stove. And I really have enjoyed cooking on it every day since I've gotten it. Another little quick mini review. This stove, silicone spoon with wooden handle. I got this because it's a little bit softer, and when I use my enameled cast iron stove cookware, I don't want to use any metal utensils in there, and I wanted to get one of these. It's going to be a little bit softer and hopefully a little bit better on the finish. Tough to really do a review of a spoon, but it was about 15 bucks. Feels nice. I don't think it's going to scratch anything. Unfortunately, stove you think of as a French brand made in China. We talked about that article last week from Food and Wine, talking about their favorite carbon steel skillets. I wrote OXO. I got some of the ones in that they mentioned in their articles. I got the OXO and the Mertern and Storck, and I know they look like the same pan. I wrote OXO an email, and they wrote back to me and said to not contact them, but to contact the Cookware company. So I contacted the Cookware company. I guess that's sort of an umbrella or holding company. They actually own a bunch of different brands, and the brands they list on their website include the OXO, the Mertern and Storck. Also, someone pointed out the BK, lots of different brands. And I think these skillets, if they're not exactly the same, the Mertern and Storck and the OXO, and I think the BK, they are very, very, very similar. I wrote OXO about whether this pan has any kind of coating on it or not. And they actually got back in touch, or actually I wrote the Cookware company, and they got back in touch, and they say there's no coating on these pans. There's a little coating on there that ships with the pans, and you got to wash it, and then you can cook in it. But as far as the metal itself, they say it's a high heat treatment, so it's probably blued or blackened in, I guess, at high temperatures, but there is no coating applied, at least according to what they told me. So that'll be good to know as we review those. I was waiting on one other pan, and this one came in. Why is it in a garbage bag? I'll show you. This is a Vollarath, and this looks a lot more like what I'm used to with a carbon steel skillet. Very shiny, very silvery. And the reason I have it in a bag is I opened it, and it's got a really, is it viscous or non-viscous oil coating on there, really kind of runny oil coating to protect that carbon steel in the shipping process. That's what I'm used to. Now, the Matfers we talked about a bunch, you got to go through a lot of steps to get their coating off. The Debouillés are coated in beeswax, and this one is in some sort of liquid oil. And just eyeballing this thing, I need to get this thing washed and seasoned quickly because I don't want this thing to rust. Really shiny, really silvery. So that's a Vollarath, and we will be reviewing that one. I actually got the oil on my fingers as well. Speaking of that Food and Wine article, they mentioned that they don't use oil and butter for their fried egg tests, and they list the made-in blue steel, carbon steel skillet as their most non-stick skillet. I actually had trouble with eggs sticking in mine, so I think what we're going to do now is fry an egg with no oil or butter and see what happens. See if it's non-stick like they got in their article. Oh, a piece of shell in there. All right, here we go. I would say stuck like a stinking duck. No oil, no butter. Stuck like a duck.
I think it's stuck like a duck. Stuck like a duck on a truck in the muck.
Without a doubt, try one more. So how Food and Wine can get non-stick eggs in a carbon steel skillet with no butter or oil? I don't know. I can't do it. Someone needs to tell me. Okay, look below the video for links to the major topics we've talked about in today's video. Look somewhere on the screen for links to other videos you might enjoy. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time on Uncle Scott's Pancast.